Hi, good morning, folks. I'm Vice Chairman Rob Finley, sitting in or filling in for Madam Chairman Marie Doremus. And on behalf of the Commission, we'd like to all join in welcoming Miss Olivia Walker Doremus to the world last the 29th of August. And so she's taking a much needed few days rest. So we'll fill in for her, but we know she's joining us virtually. Thank you for coming. I'd like to welcome each of you to the September 25th meeting of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. I now call this meeting to order. Please join me as we stand for Chaplain Marty Sykes. He'll be offering our prayer and we'll follow with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thanking you and praising you for who you are. And we thank you for how you love us. And we know that you love us enough that you sent your only Son, Jesus Christ, to come and make a way for us for forgiveness and eternal life with you. Father, as the psalmist says in Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of your hands. And we thank you for this beautiful state that we live in. We thank you for the abundance of wildlife. And Lord, we thank you for the ability to be able to go out and hunt and fish and enjoy the recreation of our beautiful state. Lord, we thank you for all of the wildlife officers that go out and work to make this conservation happen in our state, to protect the laws that protect the wildlife. We thank you for all those that are serving, those that are here today. We thank you for the Lord. I just pray for all of our wildlife officers across the state. I pray for their safety as they're in the field and traveling to and from. Father, I pray for their families. Pray for protection. Lord, we know that they have everyday life problems just like everybody else does, and so we just pray for them, pray for guidance, pray for wisdom, pray that they would seek you. I pray for the cadet class that will be graduating here very soon in the next couple of weeks. And as they go out into the field, I pray, Lord, that you will help them to become the officers that you are creating them to be. I thank you for those that have been training them. And Lord, we just pray for them and their families as well. And I thank you for the freedom that we have in America, in this great nation, and in our state. And I thank you for those who serve to protect the freedom that we have. Father, I thank you for this commission. They work very tirelessly, Lord, to regulate what goes on in our state, to make it better for the people of our state to be able to enjoy the hunting and fishing and the boating and all the mountain climbing and all the things that take place in this beautiful state. I pray, Lord, for wisdom for this commission, that you would just guide and direct them as they make decisions. We thank you for the commissioner and her new baby, and we pray your hand of blessing and protection and health over this new child. We thank you for your beautiful creation of life. Father, we just pray that you would just be with us as we go from this place, go out into the world and help us to honor and glorify you in all the things that we do and say. And it's in the precious and powerful name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Sykes. Real quickly, to take an opportunity to welcome our guests today. We have a few. If you signed in, Mr. Glenn Wilkins from Wattensaw, raise your hand. Steve Cockrell, y'all still here? Okay, Ronnie Ritter, Hunters Feeding Hunger. Ronnie, always good to see you. Brian Hendricks, thank you, Brian, for being here. I don't know if I've missed anybody else. Is Wildman here? Well, we'll have to adjourn. I don't know that we've ever had a meeting without Wild Man here. All right. So, item B, so the approval of the agenda. First matter, the approval of today's agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, I do have a addition. Budget increase for the Oakwood Unit Cultural Resource Study. This was a $163,704,000 AGFC state funds increase, which the U.S. Fish and Wildlife will reimburse for a cultural resource survey of portions of the Oakwood unit. Like that.
Okay, we do have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? And that motion passes. Are there any other deletions or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I would like to, a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Item C, approval of the, next is the approval of the official commission meeting notes from the August 14th, 2025 meeting. Are there any additions or deletions to these notes? Hearing none.
I'll move approval of the meeting notes.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor? And those opposed? That motion passes. Now it's on to the awards. We have Chief Tommy Laird. If you start to work your way to the podium, he's to announce our 2025 American Fisheries Society's President's Award on Fisheries Conservation. Tommy?
Thank you, sir. I got the honor to come up today and talk a little bit about Jeff Quinn. He recently at the National Chapter meeting in San Antonio received the President's Fisheries Conservation Award. It's a national award where it has nominations across all of the states and subunits. This conservation award was established in 1995 and is presented to the AFS individual or unit for similar accomplishments or long-term contributions that advance aquatic resources conservation at the regional and local level. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to read some of the nomination letter. Jeff's achievement and contributions to fish conservation and diversity are unmatched throughout the state of Arkansas. He spent 26 a year-long career at AGFC, primarily in the role as a sole stream biologist, and was promoted to his current position in 2021. Jeff's accomplishments are impressive, and looking over just the stream program alone, one could easily believe that it took an entire team. Part of this is due to his commitment to the state of Arkansas and his unwavering passion for species conservation and his strong work ethic. Anybody that knows Jeff will tell you he has a strong work ethic. However, the truly remarkable characteristics Jeff displays is his ability to leverage partnerships and the genuine interest he takes in every person he meets. Lastly, and more importantly, aside from his professional career, his number one focus is his family. And he's dedicated to his family. He's a committed husband. He's a father of two incredibly successful young ladies. And if y'all didn't know, Jeff plays the mean fiddle. He may have been playing the fiddle last night. He's known for playing and enjoying Irish music. So if y'all ever have a need, you can reach out to him. And he's also a renowned cook, and he makes some mean fish sticks. Jeff, if you'll come on up.
Jeff, congratulations. It's always great seeing our folks being recognized at such a high level. And Tommy? Always great seeing our folks recognized on a national level. Certainly well deserved. Jeremy Brown, our DMAP. Our presentation will start off. We have a number of presentations today, so excited to see those. Jeremy Brown, will be giving a DMAP presentation, but before that, Derek Duggar.
Good morning. If I may, I wanted to just give a couple comments before Jeremy gives his update. Jeremy's been around a long time, he doesn't need an introduction probably, but I want to make a few comments about his update, what makes it possible. This morning, to be able to bring you that. First, I want to say thank you to the commission and their directorate. This update would not be possible without your support the last 2 years financially, and we'll go through that in a little bit, but I just want y'all to know how much it means to me and my staff that from the last 2 years, the support y'all given this program, and that's why we were able to stand up here in front of you today and give you this update. One of the first things that the former Director Booth called me in his office, he asked me this question several years ago, and he said, Garrett, how do we improve, revamp DMAP? How do we make it better? And my answer was pretty simple. I said a couple of things. One, you tell me it's a priority for you, and we'll make it happen. Two, let's hire a coordinator that eats and breathes and sleeps DMAP. That's not as easy as it sounds, because hiring the right person is not always easy. But the Lord blessed us, and we were able to hire Jamie Brown, who has been eating and sleeping in deer management for a long time for game and fish. And over the last 2 years, it's been incredible for me as the division chief to watch this guy lead this program to where we're at today. And me and his supervisor constantly had to remind Jeremy to spend some time with his family and not work so much. He has given thousands of hours of overtime over the last 2 years, training a young staff that's delivering this program, not only revamping and revitalizing the program, but we're also delivering at a different level we've ever delivered before. But it took a tremendous amount of effort from Jeremy to be able to do that. And if you've never supervised a young staff of biologists, it's daunting, especially when they're statewide. So kudos to Jeremy, kudos to this commission, our directorate, who has supported this program. I think you're going to like the results you see from today. Jeremy?
Appreciate that introduction, Duggar. It's, staff is a big reason why I got more gray hair now than I ever had been, really. But I am going to talk about DMAP this year. We're going to talk about the second year, the synergization year. I come to you about a year ago. It was September a year ago, and I talked to you about how we was going to relaunch DMAP and revitalize it. That was the big theme last year, was revitalizing the program, what we was going to do to get us back on the map, on the right track. And just as Duggar said earlier, man, we can't thank y'all enough for the support, whether it's financially or whether it's through the programs and moving staff around. It's been a huge task, but I hope some of the numbers you see is going to be impressive. We are going to end up having 8 fully trained staff by hopefully this time next week or by the end of the year. And so now that theme, I'm wanting to shift from revitalization to synergization. And I'm not even sure if that's a real word, but it is in DMAP. I'm putting it on the map. So it's now that we've got the staff, we need them all to work in unison together. And I think that's some of the biggest things going forward this year. Most of you's heard about DMAP. I know we've got a few new faces, but I'll go over DMAP in a nutshell here just to kind of set the backdrop. I kind of look at DMAP as, I can get into a long story on how we manage science, using science and data, but we all talk about deer management as science-based. In the private lands division, we talk about using science and collecting data to manage habitat, and we all know we manage people, and that's a science in of its own, psychology or whatnot. But DMAP, to me, when I look at this, I call it the PhD. We're managing people, we're managing habitat, and we're managing deer. And that's kind of what DMAP does, but it's not truly the science of all of those. I call it an art of managing them together. Because you can do them all independently with science, but it takes a true artist to put them all three together to get one common goal achieved. And that's kind of what we're doing here in DMAP on private land. You can always put the hunter in the field full of deer that's got lush habitat, but you can't make that hunter shoot all them deer. And there's just a lot of variables that we do in DMAP. The map here, as most of us know, DMAP works on private lands. Well, Arkansas is mostly private lands, nearly 90% of it. The green you see is all public lands, and so where DMAP fits in as of this year is all the red that just pops up. We're trying to fill the gaps on where the public lands, synergizing all of that management we're doing already on public lands with doing that, using quality deer management principles on private land to make a larger landscape level impact. Primarily, we got a few goals that serves as the foundation of the program. We try to provide technical assistance to the clubs using quality deer management principles, but we're also trying to improve site-specific habitat quality and deer quality for the local herds. Robust data sets is a goal. That's all this data that comes in that I'll talk about today. It goes towards our strategic deer management plan. It helps with the CWD management plan. It helps with the DMAP SOP. So this is a statewide robust data set that helps make our management decisions for deer. Alternatively, we also have goals of helping other conservation agencies provide deer removal opportunities when we have that overpopulations. We're basically trying to manage deer-human conflicts. And so we have that aspect of the program too. Highlights over the last year. The first one there is the biggest that I'm probably the most proud of is fully staffed. Now I got to put a disclaimer. We got 7 hired, and hopefully by this time next week we'll have the final 8th person hired, as long as we get an acceptance. So we're less than a week away from being 100% fully staffed with the 8 NDA DMAP biologists that we once set out to do. So that is a huge feat. And the little table there is a breakdown of how that started. You know, I was brought in as a coordinator in 2023, and at that time we had 13 game and fish biologists and 0 NDA biologists. All of last year, we hired the 5 NDA biologists, and we still kept on 6 PLBs to help implement DMAP. But those NDA biologists shouldered about 68% of that workload, and now by the end of the year, we're hoping to have 8 NDA biologists shouldering 100% of DMAP at this point in time. And that does not mean that the PLBs are just out doing nothing. That means that time that we relieve them from DMAP, they're out doing the other programs, CIP, the Farm Bill stuff. They're putting a lot of habitat on the ground. It's just, they're more focused. And so we got NDA biologists that are focusing on the DMAP, and the PLBs are focusing on those other programs. And again, I'm going to use that word, synergize. Now it's time to get everybody on the same page, and so we're working in unison with one another. We got a big state, we got a lot of regions, so we got not only got to worry about synergizing our employees to work together, but we're also synergizing our partners. Hunters Feeding the Hungry, pushing this deer donation program, the National Deer Association in Greenway, putting habitat on the ground, being a cultivating partner. All of us working together in unison is what we're trying to focus on this next year. One of those focuses that we have made good strides at this year is creating a higher quality product. So now that we've got a direct focus staff that's devoting that 40 hours a week, what are we doing to make that product better? Well, this year we just launched, actually just a few months ago, we launched a DMAP quarterly newsletter just to keep everybody in the know, because I'm trying to make sure that DMAP becomes that household name, at least in the hunting community. A lot of people ask me, what does DMAP stand for? That tells me I'm not doing my job. Everybody needs to know what DMAP stands for, so I'm hoping this newsletter really reaches out. When we launched this a few months ago, we started off right around 400, and I'm scratching my head thinking, man, this might not do it. But thank Lauren Weston and her team, they put out some magic dust or something in the social media, and in literally 2 days, we shot up to over 1,200 subscribers now. So this was literally all on them. The success of this jumped really quick, and we're fixing to have our next segment. We're gonna do these quarterly, highlighting what we're doing in DMAP, letting them know habitat management stuff that's going on, letting them know how to get involved, and just spreading the word, whether it's donating deer for the Hunters Feeding the Hungry or getting a license before season starts. But it's pretty popular right now. You can simply sign with the QR code. You'll come in and fill out your name and email address, and then you'll start receiving these newsletters like you see here. Additionally, we're trying to get more streamlined. This is a big step because to enroll in DMAP, it's an annual enrollment application. And for as long as I've been here, over 17 years, it's always been paper and pencil. You take your pencil every year, you fill out the sheet of paper, you mail it in, we gotta scan them, we gotta type it all in, and it's just it's a process. So we are moving to online enrollment. We can send them a link now, type it all in, just like you're seeing here on the right. And if it's a renewal, the system remembers all your information. It's a lot like our AR Rice Fields program and the CIP program. So we've created this database that recognizes all of our DMAP clubs. You can simply click renew, sign, and you're done. 3 to 5 seconds you can be done instead of doing the old pen and paper method.
On that note, are you gonna move towards getting rid of the paper at the,
The paper applications will not 100% go away. We've got some old schoolers that don't have computers, so we're
well,
going
I'm talking about on the checklist for, like, when you, like in our DMAP, we have to fill out.
the biodata
The
ledger.
biodata ledger.
It's not going away yet. That we're in talks, and I'm looking at ways of having apps and data collection services to do that electronically. Haven't quite got to that step here. The ideas and the light bulbs are starting to come on to
Maybe
start getting more
If
electronic.
you could do a QR code for each individual program, you may be able to, that way it would trigger to that.
Yep,
That would
absolutely.
be a huge help.
And that goes back to that synergizing. I'm relying on somebody this is out of my wheelhouse. I can tell you that what we got may be clunky in some ways, but we got a team here that can put together this. When I work with Michael on this online application that you see here, he's just talking over my head, but he's making it work. And it's streamlining everything. We just finished phase 1 testing of this, and all of our biologists absolutely loved it as they tested this. It was a whole lot faster than going through our enrollment packages and sending the emails, creating a mapper. This right here, the clubs themselves draws their own maps right there on their phone, and so it takes a lot of the work off of us. Talk a little bit about numbers, the 24-25 season. How did we finish up last year in DMAP? Last year, if you remember my talk, I reported the highest numbers in 10 years. Well, we're a step higher. I'm reporting the highest number in 11 years now, so we all went up. That's a good thing, right? We reported about a little over 8,600 biodata records, and what that means, that's about 75% of all the biodata that was collected in the state come from DMAP. That's a 6.3 increase from last year. Observation hours, while they were over 21,000 observation hours, and that's a lot, that's only about a 1% increase from last year, but that is 100% of all the observation data that was collected in Arkansas come from the DMAP program. We are up, just like this graph here shows, we're up to 730 DMAP clubs that's enrolled going into this year, and that's about 1.44 million acres. Again, those are both increases of about 2.5%, and you can see, this is a pointer, but you can see the last 3 years we're steadily on the increase, and I want to keep that going back up to some historical numbers there. So we're on the right path, and I think once we get all of these 8 NDA staff, get them fully trained and get their feet under them, we're going to keep that trend moving forward.
How is the observation hours, collated? I know we used to have like a clipboard in every stand, so you went in and you checked off. And then we switched over to, on our club website, right, just, there's a QR code in every stand, so you just type it. So does each club, 'cause I don't know how this is, even my own club does this. Do we just collate that, give that to the biologist, and then?
We're pretty versatile. We've got clubs that just uses our data sheets on pen and paper. We got clubs that has their own app on their phone, and they collect it, and then they'll generate the summary and give it to us. We've got clubs that does the clipboards in the deer stands. However y'all want to, we just need total numbers of hours and total number of deer observed, and we can start working with you on that. We prefer to break down bucks by the numbers of points so we can kind of get more detail, but we take it either way. We can take it electronically. We got several clubs that has their own apps, like their own hunting club app. We're considering, I've actually mentioned to have a DMAP app at one time, but it's a challenge when you've got 30 clubs that's already got their own app, and then if I create another one, now it gets confusing. But we do take it multiple ways there. Along the lines of the deer donation program, this was a huge success last year. Me and Ronnie have been working with this a few years, but we went mainstream with it last year. We were honestly, when I asked Ronnie, I said, "What's your goal? What are we looking at?" And we both kind of said, we're knocking it out of the park if we hit 200 deer. And by the end of the season, we had 48 total clubs that participated. 38 of them were DMAP, 10 were non, but we had 557 deer, which is, just shy of 20,000 pounds of deboned meat. That's 120,000 packages of snack sticks, like you see here on the right, that went to 50 schools. And we had over 15,000 servings that went to the food pantries, all from the DMAP program and these refrigerated trailers that we cycled out through the year. So to me, that was way over exceeding what our expectations were when we started this mainstream. What we're looking at this year, just to give you an idea, obviously we haven't started shooting deer yet. We finished last year with 38 DMAP clubs that participated. We're starting without even opening day being here yet. We've got 48 DMAP clubs signed up so far this year. We've got 18 DMAP clubs that has verbally said they want to participate but has not given us a date yet. So we're going to be looking at over the 60 club mark this year. Now, I don't know what the number's going to be for deer, but I got a feeling we're going to be well over the 557 deer mark this coming year. So I'm expecting good things to come from these numbers, and hopefully everybody has a good deer season with that.
I have a question real quick, and this may be for Ronnie, but if in an ideal world, how many trailers do you need to fulfill the need
We've got
of the request?
We've got 2 being built right now, the larger triple axle trailers. That'll bring us to 7 total. Quite frankly, I think that's all we can handle right now. Moving those things and logistics, so, maybe after this year, we might have a better feel for that.
Yes, we got 2 new trailers, and that's going to be a huge help to get us through. But what we're facing now is with the 7 trailers, you got to have somebody to move the trailers, and then when you pick the deer up, you got to have multiple people there to sample for CWD. So it's not just one person that can handle 40 deer to be sampled. So with these 7, I think we're good to go, and I think we got staff to manage all of this. In October, we don't have another day available to put another trailer out there. Now, November's open, December's open, but right now, I think we're gonna grow, but I think we got to grow kind of like a flower's blooming. We gotta grow slowly, because if we get too many trailers, we're not gonna have staff to be able to pull the samples and keep up on the back end of it.
How does that, so or Ronnie, so we haul ours over to Cruise on our weekend, does one of these coordinators go to Cruise and check it, or is that how that happens?
That's right.
Yeah, we would have somebody there pulling the, CWD samples, but I think one of your guys pulled the trailer over there that weekend.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we would have 2 to 3 staff there at Cruise to pull the samples and make sure they're all tagged properly to hold those so the results come back from the sample or from the lab.
Well, how many are you turning away?
I'm not aware of us turning away any. What we're having the difficult time is all the clubs want to donate on the same weekend.
Yeah.
That's the challenge, and we're needing to space it out. and then there wouldn't be an issue, but everybody wants to donate on the 4 weekends in October. And I got 48 clubs all wanting to donate on 4 weekends, so that's the challenge, it's just spreading that. Yeah. Another big thing that we done for DMAP this year was a lot of outreach. Remember I said we was going through that revitalization phase, and so just to recap kind of what that meant was, 8 events or big conferences that we went to promote what we were doing and our successes. We did over 28 radio or TV shows, 7 public meetings and workshops, 7 trainings, and one of those trainings is like you see here in the bottom right. We brought the NDA staff and did deer stewardship too right here in this building. 3-day event. It was a huge success. That not only did we train private land staff, we trained wildlife staff, we trained our NDA biologists, but we actually brought in some DMAP club caretakers and put them through some of the training, and we brought in some of our consulting biologists just to make sure we're, all on the same page on management, and got them some training as well. And we did 102 site visits on the ground, like the photo there on the bottom left of us working with folks trying to get ryegrass converted back over to some more native stuff. So it was a big outreach event for us there, and I really think now going to 8 staff, I think at least the site visits and stuff like that, the trainings and site visits is probably going to keep going up. So what's the next steps? Well, again, synergize staff and partners. To me, I think that's most important. If you've got 8 people running around doing 8 different things, what are we really doing? I got to make sure we're all headed in the right direction. That's with partners. One of the things that's going to help with that is the new SOP. That's the next hot priority thing for me is to revise the standard operating procedures for DMAP. We got some revisions we're going to make there to make this much stronger, to get everybody on the same page. So spending the rest of this year out finishing the drafts of that. And it's really, going back to working on the PhD. I got a master's, but I think I'll always work on my PhD. That's people, hunting, or people, habitat, and deer. The more relationships we have, the more management we're going to be out there on the landscape doing. And so keeping our people happy and synergized, all with a unified goal, is a big important thing for DMAP. I do need to finish up the online enrollment because we are finishing phase 1. We just finished phase 1 testing. We're going to do phase 2 and then launch this thing to be year-round enrollment. It's not going to be a one-time, once-a-year enrollment thing anymore. With this electronic method, we can enroll any day of the year and just keep it continuous. And then surveys to measure success. We've launched a survey this year that's polling our DMAP clubs that we do site visits on. We're going to keep that a revolving survey every year. We're also doing these pulse, kind of like what our employees are doing, the pulse surveys every quarter. I'll take 4 or 5 clubs and just do like a quick pulse survey and just do a quick hit on how good did we do in the spring, how good are we doing in the summer, or is there anything. I'm trying to be more proactive than reactive on this and trying to learn faster. And just to finish up with a few take-homes. Again, fully staffed by this time next week. And I just can't say thank you enough. This is a huge feat. This is a huge shift in the way we've done things in the past, but I think it's going to prove to be making DMAP better than it ever has been. As far as a well-rounded program, we're going to be implementing this on more acres. We have a stronger emphasis on habitat. It's going to allow DMAP to grow, not only in habitat quality, but also in healthier deer herds and happier deer hunters. I had a couple of talks I did last year that the theme I feel like DMAP is helping put the hunt back into hunters. And I think that's an important thing to do this time of year, or this day and age in the culture of hunting, is keeping hunters engaged, keeping them active, and keeping them harvesting deer is a big thing. And so we're going to continue to grow this deer donation program. I don't know what the limit is. I do think it's going to continue to go up as long as we can keep the tires aired up and keep the trailers rolling and staff there to pull the samples. But we do want to make sure we're going to measure our successes through surveys and through these types of reports, and make sure we're learning as fast as we can and not being reactive a year or two down the road. Any questions? Appreciate the time.
Any questions for Jeremy?
Jeremy, we talked last year a bit about these independent biologists that are working with these DMAC clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Have we kind of increased the information that they have to give us?
We have. This year, I can say that I am more happy now than I ever have been about us getting most all of their management plans provided to us for us to review before we approve. There's a few of them that we're still following up on. We haven't issued, you know, we created that mantra of we don't issue tags until we see a plan.
Exactly.
Instead of going on good faith. But that's gonna definitely be addressed in the new SOP revisions. We're looking at adopting a consulting biologist application to where you need to fill out an application to send your information in to us, and just to make sure that the club is authorizing you to provide data and authorizing us to give those tags and information back out to them as well. I think that's going to strengthen our relationship. We got a meeting coming up at the end of the month of September, and I'll have a meeting with all the consulting biologists, notifying them of changes that are coming up. And so I feel a lot better about our relationships that we have with these biologists now than I did a couple of years ago, for sure.
I heard that there's going to be serial numbers on the tags now that will correlate back.
We do have unique serial numbers on the DMAP tags this year. One of the things we've done is merged in the CWD private lands tag system in with DMAP. And that's going to be one of the revisions of the SOP, but that kind of required that serial number so we know who has which tag. So we went this year with all DMAP tags have that unique identifying number, and we know which clubs that those are issued to now. They can still choose to use that serial number on the biodata ledger or not, but we know who got which tag and what number this year.
Good.
Hey Jeremy, 3 quick things. I received my packet and went through it thoroughly. Number 1 point, I think there's a general feeling, a sense, an aura that it is improving and that you're taking it to the next level.
Good.
Thank you. Number 2 point was there's a couple of gentlemen on the front row that I bet their teams were involved in that too. The CWD packet or the flyer brochure that was in there was excellent. So much more condensed than the full version that the whole commission or the whole study reveals. This is just narrowed down. If y'all haven't seen that, Keith, Corey, the team, whoever all was involved in that, that was a great piece. And third, Nathan Cowley, my regional rep, came down and I met with him, and I see a higher level of intellect there too. I mean, just his knowledge, and he's a Mississippi State boy. Trust me, I was very judgmental. But good job on hiring.
I appreciate that. That does mean a lot. I love hearing stuff like that. I do feel like the staff, we got a pretty salty crew right now.
It is, isn't it?
And they're eager. Yes, they're young, but boy, they've got the energy and they want to do it. And I think that's what it takes. And sometimes you don't gotta hire the old wise ones. As long as you got the youngs that are willing, you can shape and mold them and get the program that you need out of them.
Well, Jeremy, thanks about what a great presentation. It's evident that leadership and old wise one of yourself has done a great job of leading this crew and making it and taking it to another level. So thank you for your commitment, your team's commitment to this, but a great program. Thank you for presenting. All right, next up, I'm sure somebody's going to introduce, but we have Dr. Morton McClung from Hendrix College. We'll give a presentation on the monitoring of the avian productivity in survivorship stations.
That's good.
And we have Luke Davis.
Yeah. Dr. Maureen McClung, she's been at Hendrix, a biology professor there since 2011. And so she's been, I think a couple folks, this was mentioned out on a field trip, about some cool timing here, the areas we just looked at on the field trip, and her monitoring of bird populations on those same areas. Birds are a great indicator for what's going on habitat-wise. So Marine's gonna give us a little update on that.
Thank you.
to me gush about birds. As Luke mentioned, I'm from Hendrix College, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit about the history of Stone Prairie Maps and what we've been discovering at our station. Let's see, so there we go. So MAP stands for Monitoring Avian Productivity and Survivorship. It's a program that's administered by the Institute for Bird Populations. And it's a continent-wide collaborative effort that is participated in by public agencies, NGOs, and private individuals that monitor bird populations with the goal of conserving these birds as well as their habitats. So folks who engage in the MAPS program collect data using standardized protocols, and these data can be used to estimate demographic parameters such as, well, we call them vital rates, and they're things like survivorship and productivity. And these parameters help us understand what life stages of the birds are really important for driving population changes. So since the inception of this program, since 1989, there's been over 1,200 stations. And this has resulted in over 2.5 million captures of birds. And there are only about 300 stations run per year. So over 1,200 have occurred, but there are only about 300 per year, because some, come into existence and then leave existence. In fact, there used to be one at Bell Slough Wildlife Management Area, but it closed up about 2005. These data that come from the MAPS program have resulted in over 250 published studies. And I was inspired to start the MAP station that some of you got a chance to see at Stone Prairie this morning when I looked at this map that shows the green dots are active stations. When I looked at this map in 2017, Arkansas was completely dark, and I was like, well, we have to fix that. So hence the Stone Prairie Map Station came to be in concert with a lot of great people at Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. We launched this in 2020. And we drove right along that horizontal road this morning, and we placed the station with the goal of capturing a variety of habitats. And so that's what MAPS protocols ask for you to do, to try to get a variety of birds, and birds are attached to habitats, so that was the goal. So we placed 10 12-meter mist nets within this 20-hectare region, and you can see that they sample forest, woodland, and grassland areas. Now this was pre a lot of that management that we talked about this morning, and a lot has changed since then. The way the MAPS program runs is it tries to capture birds during their productive season, i.e. having lots of babies. And so it runs from late May to early August, and we have 8 sampling days. So we go out about every 10 days and run what we call a MAPS day. So this is what the team looks like. These are pictures from our first day every year from 2020 through 2025. You can see I get together a good looking crew. The folks involved are a lot of my students who are in training, as well as Arkansas Game and Fish personnel. You might see some familiar faces in there if you can zoom in. We get folks from Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission helping out, as well as people from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and some other randos come out and join us on occasions as well. Everybody likes to come and interact with the birds. So a day in the life of MAPS involves getting up really early in the morning and setting up nets pre-dawn. So it's dark, we have our headlamps on, and we set up these mist nets, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner a diagram of what one of them looks like. There are these vertical poles, and strung in between them are these 12-meter, they're called mist nets because they basically look like mist. You can barely even see them. If you can imagine what a hairnet looks like, that's kind of what they look like. And so we set these up, and we have them open by 6 a.m., and we close them up by noon. And every 30 minutes, we walk what we call loops. And so if you look at this satellite image on the bottom right, you've got a loop on the left and a loop on the right. And so we'll have teams that go out and walk nets in the order of 1 through 5, and then we have another team that goes out and runs, does a run 6 through 10. And we visit each net in order, and we look to see whether birds have flown in, encountered resistance in that net, and then they drop down into these little pockets and they become entangled. The birds typically lay still, and then we come in and we extract them very carefully after much training, and then we place them in this top right picture. You can see a very special bird bag. There's actually a downy woodpecker sitting in that one, and that helps keep them relatively calm and await what we call processing, which we do at that little dot in the center called the banding station. So when the birds are processed, what that refers to is we take them out of the bag and we determine what species they are. You can't band a bird until you know what species they are. And once we do, we take a metal band that we get from the USGS Bird Banding Lab, which is part of the Ecosystems mission area, and that has a unique identifying number that tells you this is a unique bird, and we place that on the leg. You can see my student Sydney Lehman doing that to a Kentucky warbler in the bottom middle picture there. After we get it banded, we then take data that allow us to determine its age and its sex and its body condition. And so in that top picture, you see Sam, who works around these parts, measuring the wing chord of a yellow-breasted chat, tells us a little bit about its size. In the bottom left picture, you can see my banding partner, Kevin, who's also pictured in the top right. He works for Natural Heritage. He's blowing on the breast of a summer tanager. Now we know that's a female because, well, she's yellow, but we also know it's a female because of that brood patch on the breast. And what we can also tell from that picture is that she's in peak breeding condition because that is a BP equal to 3, is what we would say there in our MAPS codes. So you can tell a lot about a bird taking these different types of data regarding their body condition. And yeah, go ahead.
How do you tell the age?
We're going to get to that. I have a quiz for you in the next couple slides. So in the bottom right picture, before we move on to the next slide, I like to show this picture because it's on one of our busiest days. You can see, I wish there was is there a laser pointer? I don't think, oh, maybe kind of. I'll just walk over. This line right here has a bunch of bird bags strung on it. Those are individual birds awaiting processing. And so usually our first day of MAPS is our busiest day of MAPS because the birds don't know where the nets are yet. And so they fly into them pretty readily. And so all of those birds are awaiting processing. So getting to age. Telling age takes a lot of practice, and I'm still learning new things every time I get a bird in the hand. I went to a lot of workshops to learn this, and I also use a lot of resources. So one way we do this, we can tell by using breeding characteristics like that brood patch that you saw. But one clue is looking at wings. So I am a weirdo and I take pictures of every single bird I've ever caught in my hand. A lot of banders do not take it to that extreme, but I do, because I like having the records. So we see here 2 indigo buntings. They are a different age. Now, to the untrained eye, you might look at that and say, those are the same bird. They look exactly the same to me. But there's something different going on in those birds. Does anybody know? Anybody with banding experience?
The color.
There is a little bit of a color difference, right? I want to draw your attention to this patch right here. We're going to focus in on that. What that patch tells us, so you can tell I'm a teacher, I'm giving you guys a quiz. What that patch tells us is that the bird on the left is what we call an after second year, and the bird on the right is a second year. So that one on the left hatched at least 2 years ago, and that one on the right hatched at least last year. And so I'm going to draw in some arrows here and show you that those feather tracks, what we call primary coverts, are different colors. So the ones on the left are mostly black with some nice blue edging, and the one on the right are kind of dull. And so it's these relatively subtle differences that we look at in the light and we compare, and that can tell us relative age of these birds. So that's an indigo bunting. I have another one for you. This should be a familiar bird. This is a Carolina wren, a denizen of our backyards. So these are different ages as well. One is younger and one is older. Can anyone tell or want to make a guess which one's younger?
On the right.
The one on the right? Actually, that's the older bird.
Oh, yeah.
So the one on the left, okay, I appreciate you speaking up. The one on the left is a hatchier bird. So that one was just hatched this year. The one on the right, we know, hatched at least last year. This is a more generic age. And the way I was able to tell that is looking at these undertail covert feathers. So the ones on the left have much lighter barring. Those feathers are much more poorly constructed. Young birds are really bad at growing feathers. They grow them in real quick and they get out of the nest. And so they're really poorly constructed, and by looking at those undertail coverts, I can say, okay, I think this is a younger bird. Now, we use other clues as well. You use lots of different clues to put together the puzzle and say, this is an older bird, this is a younger bird. But this is one thing that is really useful for Carolina wrens specifically. How do I know this? It's not just in my brain. There's actually a book that we use that is really important for us, and I actually have a copy of it in my car that I'm happy to show anybody if they're interested in looking at it. It is an expansive tome that you kind of have to learn the language to read. And it's really impressive once you get to understand the language that this book uses, to understand just how many hours of banding and museum specimen measuring went into assembling this sort of guide that helps us assess age and sex of birds in the field. And what's also important to note about this is the kind of work that goes on at Stone Prairie Maps feeds back into updates of this bird. This is the second edition of this guide that it just came out a couple years ago. And our data gets submitted to the bird banding lab every year, and these measurements and the notes that we take about when birds are molting and things like that get fed back into updates of these kinds of resources. So the kind of work we're doing goes into broader bird science.
What's the lifespan?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the lifespan of these type of birds?
Not very long for a lot of them. A lot of them do not live beyond the first year or two. But one of the oldest birds that we've caught, we know because we caught it, banded it, and then we caught it multiple years, was at least 4 years old. We have not seen it since after that 4th year of recapturing it, but and that was a migratory species. Yeah. But some birds, at other banding stations I know, 7, 8 years, but it really depends on the species. Oops, no way. All right, so getting into some of the data for our station. So let's look at what we catched. So in the last 6 years, we've caught 47 species, and we have had 1,139 encounters in nets. That includes birds that we banded, birds that we've recaptured, and birds that have flown in, but maybe we didn't get a chance to process because we couldn't band them or they escaped us. That happens sometimes. We've applied 836 new bands, and we've had 151 birds that we consider unique recaptures, so unique individuals. And if you look at this figure here, you can see that, at least by this metric, new bands per 100 hours. Our overall numbers are increasing each year from 2020 to 2025. And that per 100 hours is important because we adjust for our survey effort. Each year we don't necessarily survey the same number of hours, and so when we adjust for that, you still see that our numbers are increasing overall. In terms of the types of species we catch the most of, or that we band the most of, you can see those ranked here. So we get a lot of beautiful indigo buntings, yellow-breasted chats, Kentucky warblers, blue-gray gnatcatchers, Carolina chickadees, and Carolina wrens. Some of these you might recognize from your backyard. Some of them are ones you might see or expect to see in the types of habitats for those of you on the trip this morning would hear calling from the scrub or the prairie. There are some things we catch that we cannot band. So ruby-throated hummingbirds take a very special permit to be able to band. They have itty bitty feet, and they like to tuck them up, and they're very challenging to band. I've seen it done, and I don't want any part of that. It takes a lot of training, and we do extract them from the net. We age them and sex them, but we have to release them unbanded. They are quite adorable, and we do enjoy catching them, and we catch quite a few of them, but we let them go on their merry way. We also catch things on the other end of the spectrum. So we catch hawks, which I'm also not permitted to ban. The very first time we caught one, Stephen Fowler, I called him on the radio and I said, "Stephen, there's a hawk, please come get it." I did not want to touch that hawk. He got it out and was very gleeful to do so. I grew up and I was able to get hawks out eventually. They're actually quite calm in the net. They don't get too tangled, but occasionally we catch hawks. I did want to include this picture. This was actually at a training event that we had where I was training my students for banding. Sometimes we also catch their lunch. So this was a red-shouldered hawk that flew into the net with its lunch, which was also scalped. Maybe I should have warned you guys that picture was coming. But when people ask me what's the craziest thing I've ever caught, this is the craziest thing I ever caught. And it was a very unique experience, and I enjoyed it because I'm a weirdo biologist, I suppose. Well, okay, so what are we learning about management? Well, for those those of you who were on the tour, you got to see how much the habitat is opening, right? We saw that contrast between the closed canopy forest and where fire was just applied to that woodland that they've been treating for several years. That is part of the map station. So that section actually includes part of where we band. And so with some of the ways that MAPS has us take data on habitat, we've shown that the closed canopy forest that was there in 2020 has been opening up, and we're getting a lot more woodland habitat cover out there. Grassland within the area where we band has remained relatively similar, but the woodland has definitely increased. And so this has led us to ask, how is this changing bird communities? And so my student, Sydney Lehman, who you saw banding that Kentucky warbler earlier, she did an analysis of some of these data earlier this spring, and she used what we call a guild approach. So she took species that are considered habitat specialists for different types of habitat, and she classified them using the Birds of the World database, and she assigned them to either forest, woodland, or grassland species. And then she calculated something called the mean percent change of new bands and initial recaptures. So those are birds that received new bands on their legs, or we were catching them for the first time that season. And she did that across 2020 to 2024. And what she found, as you can see from these numbers here, if you look to the left in the colored bullets there, the forest birds and the woodland birds really didn't have that large of a mean percent change, but grassland birds were doing quite well. So that's for our one quick look at some of our community numbers. We were also interested in looking at species representatives from these guilds and to see if those trends that we were seeing in the community tracked with the populations as well. And so to do this, we chose representatives for each of those habitat guilds, including a Kentucky warbler for forest, indigo bunting for woodland, and yellow-breasted chat for the grassland. And as you can see from these numbers in the bottom left, indeed, those numbers look very similar to the last slide, and they track pretty well. And the other thing I want you to notice from this graph is that across the years on the x-axis there, you get a lot of fluctuation in these this mean percent change in new bands and initial recaptures. And so what I think this highlights is the importance of this sort of long-term data set, right? If you took a look at just 1 or 2 years of data, you would just get a snapshot of what's going on. And it's important to look at population. If you're interested in population change, it's important to look at these data over many years to get a good idea of just how variable these numbers can be, which is why these monitoring programs can be really helpful. Keep pressing the wrong way. It's also important to look at metrics other than just numbers, like who are we catching and how many of them are we catching. And so to do that, Sydney calculated something, a scaled mass index, which is a way that we measure body condition. This takes into account the mass of a bird, scaled for how large they are, so using that wing chord measurement. And she did this for those 3 representative species of the different habitat types. So our forest in the bottom left, our grassland with the yellow-breasted chat, and our woodland for the indigo bunting. And you can see that there was no change in body condition across the years. It stayed relatively the same. And the takeaway from this is that even though we're seeing these relatively large changes in habitat out at Stone Prairie, the prairie is providing, right? Even though we're getting this decline in the forest, even our forest species like the Kentucky warbler is still finding food there, right? And it's probably enjoying some of the food that's being provided by these other habitat types. Let me get it right at some point, I promise. So I'll wrap up by talking about kind of some general take-homes I think are the value of the Stone Prairie map station. So first of all, I think it's important for management, right? So what we're doing is we're generating this long-term data set to assess how management impacts species that are using the WMA and species that we're not necessarily strictly managing for, right? We're looking at the songbird community that, you didn't hear me mention bobwhite quail, right? Because we don't catch bobwhite quail, although we really would like to. We hope one day they'll fly in and maybe stick around and we could see one, but we just hear them for now. And what this allows us to do is to tell stories with data about how well these species are doing in response to this management, and also show that even though forest is declining here, forest species are still managing, they're sticking around, they're utilizing the resources here, and their body condition is still hanging in there and doing well, right? And so we might expect species like this yellow-billed cuckoo that Noah is holding. He's not here to see that I included him in the presentation, but he was really happy to see this bird and get this photo taken. You know, we would expect this species to be declining, but we've steadily caught 1 or 2 of these every year since the start of the station. We're seeing increases in eastern bluebirds, like this juvenile eastern bluebird here, and they are probably enjoying the benefits of all the habitat management out there. So we can use these data to inform management, to talk about what's going on out there with the public, and that's a good thing. And remember, all of these data are going to the Institute for Bird Populations for their larger scale analyses at broader temporal scales, broader spatial scales. They're going to the Bird Banding Lab with the USGS, and anyone has access to these data. You could go analyze these data if you wanted to. You can access it through the IDP's data exploration tool. You can request those data from the Bird Banding Lab, and they're free and available to the public. And finally, I want to close by highlighting just how important this experience is for my students. I've had 30 students participate in this project over the last 6 years, and it's really important because it allows them to connect theory to practice. They develop skills. It helps them explore career options, as well as network with a variety of folks that help out with the station. And I've only pictured a few of them here, but they're all going out and doing really great things. A couple of these folks are currently pursuing their PhDs. Maybe not on birds, like Tristan in the bottom right is up at U of A. He's studying pollinators, which he fell in love with while working out at Stone Prairie. Jacqueline up at the top right just finished her master's at UCA working with mountain boomers, the eastern collared lizard, but now she's restoring coastal wetlands with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife out in Delaware. Andrew Clark there holding the cardinal. He just started a job with Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission. Lauren worked in Bozeman's office for a little while after getting her master's at U of A. So, you know, folks are doing great things, and I think they would all be able to tell a story about how maps impacted them in small and big ways, and helped them develop as students on their journey. And this opportunity to collaborate with Game and Fish has been really big in my development as well as a professor. It helps me teach, it helps me do science, and it helps me give back to bird conservation here in Arkansas, and more broadly, right, at the national scale, because like I said, these data go into much broader analyses. And I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to collaborate with all of these people. And so with that, I'll acknowledge everybody for this report and close with this beautiful picture of some fantastic habitat and take any questions.
Dr. McClellan, thank you for just the incredible work you're doing, not only making a difference in our habitat and our ecosystem, but investing in the young lives of these folks coming up and as they seek their passion. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. McClellan? Thank you very much. Great job. Tommy there. Come tell us how you're spending money in Spring River. This is an ongoing project. Tommy's going to give us a good update on Spring River Fish Hatchery at Jim Hinkle. Take it away, Tommy.
That's going to be a hard act to follow. And bring the same energy and passion that she had on both. It's a pretty exciting presentation. I'm going to give you a quick update on Spring River, and plus on the backside, I'm going to talk a little bit about Lake Conway. There's been some changes that have happened to it since we're right here close to Lake Conway. I thought I'd give you a quick update on that too. See if I can switch this. Excuse me just a second. If everybody remembers, Spring River flooded back in April 4th. I just wanted to throw a couple of slides up here to kind of show you the timeline. You can look over here in the bottom left. It's 10:14 p.m. You can see the water coming over the dam, and this is the fence on the west side of the hatchery that was eventually washed away. Here's a picture after staff had abandoned the island completely. This is looking from the railroad tracks, and you can see across. And I really wanted to show you this next slide, which is about an hour later. Just look at the volatility
of the river as it's coming over the dam.
So that kind of puts in perspective of what we're dealing with here. The peak water flow is somewhere right after midnight, between 12 and 1 p.m. And you can see that the river stayed more than double its usual height until 7 a.m. And when it topped, it's about 3 feet in the office, but it was topped all over the silos. Now, where do we stand today? As everybody knows, I'm giving about 3 other updates on Spring River Hatchery. We had promised you that we would bring you a report in September, and we don't have that report yet. And I'm going to kind of explain online where we're at with this. Currently on station at the hatchery, the staff, with help of operations and the trout program and wildlife and other people, we've been completely clean. The office has been completely clean. We've done some mitigation there. We got it going back and running at full production as far as the office is concerned. We're not there on the hatchery yet. Currently we've got about 472,000 trout on station. You can see there's 86,000 8 to 11 inch, and there's 386,000 5 to 7 inch. But what I wanted to kind of emphasize here is we've got some gaps in production, as y'all can see. Part of the problem is our production facility where we hatch the eggs is not back up and running. We're still trying to get that back. We're having some piping issues there. We have some gaps between that 8 and 11 inch fish and the 5 to 7 that we need to fill. You can see 86,000 fish is not going to carry us very far. And with the 386, it'll be probably February before they get up to size where we can stock them out. And then we're going to have to bridge some of those gaps through our federal partners, obtaining eggs, or other state partners with fish trades. I tasked staff to reach out to some of the western states. They've offered up some fish in the past. Well, we're now at a point where we can start taking fish from our state partners. Chris Engineers gave us a preliminary report back in July that basically shows the water tightness of our tanks. 80% of our tanks are ready to go. And we've got 6 tanks that are going to need some type of modification or correction. There's cracks in the walls that are leaking, and we're going to have to go in and make repairs. We don't have the final report yet. Part of the reason we don't have the final report is because, we've got involved with FEMA. They've done an initial inspection, and we were providing additional information at this time. And part of that additional information is what's called an H&H modeling report. It's basically a hydraulic modeling that they're requiring us to do. But it's going to be good information that we can use in the future. I'm going to explain the modeling report. Basically what it does is they'll create a model that will take the flood event that we had in April, and as we make mitigation changes, whether we take out the entryway there and we make it an open expansion bridge, it'll show how that would affect the flooding event that happened. If we decide to put emergency spillway over on the east side, this modeling will show what kind of impact it made on that flood event and how it will affect our hatchery. If we decide to put seawalls down the side so the water kind of diverts, this modeling will tell us if it's going to make an impact or not. So very valuable information we're going to get from that. And we're supposed to get that modeling in October. Currently, we're doing fence repairs. That should start next week. We've had electrical services come in and do an inspection on everything electrical on the island, whether it's the building, interior or exterior. That inspection's been done. That's about 2 weeks ago, but we haven't got a report yet. Dew prawn is coming in October to reset the vegetation screens. Then the divers are supposed to come in and do the final dive inspection around the 1st of October.
Hey, Tommy, what's the visibility down there for that?
Yeah, it's the visibility. The other thing is, this is a very special dive team. There's not very many of them in the nation. The last divers we had come in were from Utah. Just kind of show you've got to have the right equipment and the right expertise. So they're in high demand. There's a backlog of work for them, and we're trying to get them in here around the 1st of October. And then Chris Engineers will give us a final report sometime in October of all these, smaller reports that will come to them. And at that point in time, then we'll come to you guys and make a recommendation on what mitigation we should do moving forward. But I just wanted to put on here that, the estimated timeline to come fully operational again is sometime this early next spring in 2026.
Which is pretty impressive considering the damage done in a 12-month turnaround.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for, 12-month turnaround. Now, I will say this, we've got to fill in those gaps up there. And we're gonna check with the commercial side of things to see if we can purchase some fish. I know there's potential that FEMA may give us some money back for the fish that we lost. It's not, the verdict's not final yet, but hopefully that'll happen. And then we're gonna look for state partners, we're gonna look at our federal partners to see if we can fill those gaps.
Tommy, do they think the dam is all right? I mean, I know they've looked at it.
The initial, well, I talked to Reed Pfeiffer yesterday. They think the dam's okay. When they did the initial dive, they basically checked from where the springs are out to the baffles. And all that came back positive. No issues whatsoever. What they're gonna dive on this time is over on the east side, which is the older part of the dam, and look at that structure. But they think there's not any issue, and I'm hopeful that's the case. Any other questions on this? I know it's not a lot of good news, it's still just kind of pausing the button and waiting until we get this final report. I think when FEMA got involved, it kind of slowed things down. But we should be coming back sometime in October or November to give you a final report and recommendation. I gave you all a handout. Ben asked me to give you a quick update on Lake Conway. There's been a lot of movement recently, and I wanted to talk about 4 things. First off, we got our permit like back in July, and we put the spillway or the dam renovation out for bid. We got that back August the 7th, and you can see we got 5 solid bids. They range from anywhere from 8.1 million to like 13.4 million. We awarded the bid to a low bid. They met all of our specifications. That is capital paving for $8,178,170. The thought process is they'll mobilize around the 1st of October, and we should be breaking ground in October. Completion of that job should happen sometime in the summer of 27. On the boat lanes, just to give you an update there, the contractor has come in and done all the mulching for all 30 miles of the boat lanes. He has put up temporary markers, so if the water fluctuates and someone gets out on the boat, they can see where the new boat lanes are. But he's gonna come back. We've got to let the lake come up to, I think it's 260 feet, normal pool is 263, so he can set the permanent poles. So we're just kind of waiting. Access improvements through MFT, which is marine fuel tax. We're gonna make improvements on 2 accesses this year, Lawrence Landing and Pierce Creek. And the note I gave you there, we're gonna spend $953,000 this year, and we're gonna allocate an additional $500,000 the next 2 years for marine fuel tax for access improvements on the lake. That can be anything from expanding ramps, parking lots, striping, lighting, jetties, docks, and bait fishing opportunities. And then final, we've done a lot of habitat projects, we've done some trash cleanups. We're doing another big habitat project this next month in October, bringing in the fisheries team. We're gonna make 180 of these into habitat structures that we're gonna put around the lakes. So a lot of good things that are happening. I know it was a long time getting here, but now we're gonna hit the ground running pretty fast and do a lot of work. Do I have any questions about Lake Conway? Our plan is to hopefully in the fall of 2027, that we'll start stocking fish back into the lake. That will be our goal.
Perfect. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you. I guess I need to stay up here and introduce the next.
Would you like to introduce Chef Quinn?
Yeah, we're gonna have to reintroduce Quinn. I don't know if any introductions needed for Quinn.
after he got the Heisman of the American fisheries,
Yeah, that,
he should introduce you.
the Irish music that he plays with the fiddle. What was the other instrument you played? The,
I do play button accordion too.
yeah,
Yes.
and plus his fish sticks, you can't beat that, right?
I don't know, we'll find out.
Yep.
I have a video there, I don't know how to start it.
That's all right.
We're seeing up there.
There you go.
This is great. So these are Alabama shad in this tank. So it's a great honor to speak today. Thanks so much for having me. I realize we're on the precipice that we can see the 30th anniversary of Amendment 75 in about 14 months, which helps fund work like this. And public surveys that happened at that time really said they wanted us to do a lot of work with endangered species. I just got a text, or email, I guess, about 30 minutes ago, saying the service decided to not list Ozark Shiner under the Endangered Species Act. And that was a pretty big win for us because we didn't really think it was warranted, and we thought it would detract from funding from the species that actually needed it. So that's a little announcement to start. And I want to talk today, though, about the successful initiation of the telemetry project for Age 0 Alabama shad. I'd like to acknowledge Jimmy Hall, my co-author especially. Jimmy was extra labor that worked with me. And I floated the idea that he'd give this presentation at the Arkansas Chapter American Fisheries Society meeting last, I think February it was, and he was super excited about it, and he actually, with the longer version of this presentation, won the Best Professional Paper Award, and it was one of the most rewarding things I'd done in my career to get extra labor to actually win a Best Paper Award. It was really super cool. Also, this project wouldn't have been possible without assembling a super awesome team, and they all deserve as much credit as I do for getting this project done. So again, it was a huge team effort. What's interesting about this species is it's Arkansas's only anadromous species. So it's kind of like a salmon. It'll actually spawn in the fresh water, in the Washita River in this case, and migrate out to the Gulf of Mexico. So it's a highly migratory fish. It is considered the fourth most imperiled fish in the state in our Arkansas Wildlife Action Plan as a candidate for listing with the National Marine Fisheries Service in NOAA. It looks a lot like skipjack herring and is in the same genus, but its jaws are of equal length, where a skipjack has a greatly elongated lower mandible. So skipjack, this would be greatly elongated. So it's a really cool fish and something, unlike the birds, which we just heard have a big treatise on, there's almost nothing known about this species. Very little known about it. One of the reasons is because it's a real boom and bust species. We had really a lot of bust years between 2017 and 2023, especially 2018. I think over 300 seine hulls produced 0 fish. In that time frame, I managed to capture 18 fish, and UAPB caught 1 adult. I've looked for these every spring since 2017, and I've caught 0 adults in that time frame. One of the hardest fish to catch that I've ever seen. I can catch every other endangered species in the state. This one just gives me fits. But last summer, in 2024, we saw a mini boom. We found fish only downstream of the Gray Dam, the mouth of the Cattle River, down the Camden area. And we caught 116 H0 fish, and we thought, wow, this is our opportunity to do a telemetry project. And we wanted to understand the migration of this species, especially around dams. So our objectives were to determine methods for capturing, holding, and tagging H0 Alabama shad. This is a really big thing because these kind of Alicine shads are, I want to say, if you just look at them wrong, they'll die on you. I mean, they're super sensitive. It's really, you have to have amazing fish handling skills to keep these things alive. I didn't even think it was possible till last January when some researchers working with a closely related species, the American shad out in the Pacific Northwest, developed some methods that we thought we could use. And then we wanted to evaluate migration of age 0 fish with telemetry. I never ever thought I'd get it done with age 0 fish. I thought it would have to be with adults. It was just kind of a miracle, and we lucked into it in some kind of ways, I guess. I want to familiarize yourself with the study area. We caught fish in the Washita River, again, mostly in this area from DeGray Dam downstream. We didn't catch any fish above DeGray Dam, although some years I've seen them present up there. There's hydropower dams in the yellow boxes, the Bremel, DeGray, and Narrow, so the water's always going up and down. It's really hard to plant sampling. We have navigation dams. There's 4 of them that these fish have to migrate through. They're kind of the red dots, Thatcher, Felsenthal, Columbia, and Jonesville along the system. It actually is 4 river systems, the Washita, the Black, the Red, and then the Chaffalaya. It's a 600-mile migration route, and these dams, at higher flows, the fish can actually go through a navigation pass designed for a barge to go right over the dam. So they're very unique that way. But at low flow, passage is much more difficult. So this is where you can see the water's going right over the dam, and the fish can get right through, swim right over it. At low flow, it's a lot more difficult. And so, we were a little concerned at the time when the Corps of Engineers started annual drawdowns on Felsenthal for green tree reservoir reestablishment on what would be the impacts on this really rare fish. And we were working with American eel to start. They're much easier to work with. You can handle them, and it's not such a big deal. And they're much more abundant and easier to collect. We moved on to Alabama shad in the fall. We knew we did boat electrofishing in October. We caught the fish. We placed them in 5-gallon round tanks. It's absolutely critical that you keep the salt content at 3 to 7 parts per thousand, keep this fish alive, because it has a massive cortisol response from being captured. And if you don't do that, they're dead. You have to maintain oxygen, water circulation, and the temperatures have to be mild, or again, they'll die on you. You have to be careful when you're capturing them not to knock too many scales off, too. That's another thing that'll kill them. We got lucky. We caught 49 that we kept alive with lengths of 6 to 7.5 inches. I'll admit that I accidentally killed the first 14 of them. It was a real learning moment, I guess you could say, a failure that eventually led to success. We learned from my mistakes, and it was pretty incredible that we actually brought them back to the hatchery. I want to give Jeff Newman, our hatchery manager, big kudos for his work on this project. Him and Ryan Little did an amazing job. We actually don't ever like to put the dip net on the fish, so we actually try to capture that red bucket, the fish, and then in water, actually transport them over to our fish tanks that Jeff retrofitted so they wouldn't have any square corners, because if a fish gets in the corner, it'll sit there and fight it and die also. So there's so many ways you can kill these fish. It's really, they're really sensitive. We did a lot of, Jeff and Ryan did a lot of work trying to do tempering of the fish on the hatchery to make sure no temperature shock happened. Really important at the hatchery, we have one chiller unit, which allows us to cool the water off. We only have one. They're about a $5,000 unit, but we'd have to switch it between about 4 different tanks. But to do water changes on a regular basis, when we were monitoring ammonia to make sure that it didn't get too high. And again, you have to keep them on salt, and they have to be in current. In order to catch the fish for surgery, we caught them in this pitcher. Jeff developed this technique. Actually, getting the fish out of the tank is a problem because you don't want to overly frighten them or they'll die again on you. We put them in anesthetic, MS-222, a really low dose because we didn't know what would kill them. There wasn't a lot of literature on that. So basically, we were just trying to kind of calm them down with anesthetics so we could handle them with electrofishing gloves and not have them flop so much and rub scales off. We put a transmitter in that was less than 2% of their body weight. The fish actually grew to a lot larger size in October than I thought they would. I thought it'd be really difficult to get this size of tag in them, but it actually worked out pretty good. Dr. Ballard did all of our surgeries, our former veterinarian. She's an amazingly skilled veterinarian surgically. And, you know, she inserted it, did some nice sutures on the fish. They recovered in this tiny little bucket to the point where you could release them. And we noticed behavioral things nobody's ever documented before, like when they get really stressed out, they develop that dark color, and they'll swim at the surface and they won't rejoin a school. And it's really important that you have other fish in the tank, because these fish actually, if you separate them, they're so oriented towards schools usually that they can actually die of fright if they don't have other fish with them. So we wanted to make sure we did that, and it'd take about 3 to 4 minutes before they finally got their color back, and then they would rejoin the school.
How do they survive in the wild?
We're going to get to that too.
Good question.
So, you know, to release them, we had to bring them, do everything in reverse order, do the what, you know, a lot of them were in really good shape. I think we only had one die from surgical stuff, and we had to we think it was from a bacterial infection rather than a surgery.
He's scared of needles.
Yeah. We released the fish and took a lot of pictures. Dr. Dustin Lynch helped me with the Heritage Commission with that. He's a great photographer. I'm not so much one. We keep track of fish by manually tracking them in our study area. And then all these red dots on the map are areas we have hydrophones that listen for the ping that comes out of the transmitter as they swim by. And there's actually 2 of them at each dam, above and below the dam. So we can understand how long they get, you know, stopped at different dams. And you can see there's a lot of receivers in Louisiana. We've got a lot of partners, and we're leveraging a lot of support. So we're really doing this project extremely inexpensively, considering the size of the study area. Just some preliminary results. We don't have any of the data really from any of our partners in Louisiana yet. That's supposed to happen this month. But we detected 73% of our fish, which is actually pretty good for an Alicine study. That's pretty low for other species though. But for this kind of fish, it's considered good. We only had 12 migrants, which was a little disappointing. One fish that actually took off and then we could actually track through the whole, you know, through parts of the system. That's 43%. They moved from November 2nd to December 12th. Nobody knew that information. That was totally unknown. So now if they want to put hydropower projects in on some of these dams, we can make recommendations from them on when to avoid trying to, you know, basically make sure they don't get ground up in turbines if possible. And then what was interesting is 8 out of 12, or 67% of migrants were impeded by Thatcher Dam. Last fall was really a dry time frame, and the water was really, really low. And 3 of those fish paused migration an average of 10 days. 5 stopped migration. We think they probably died. These things have a high caloric density and are a favored prey item of, you know, like a fish like flathead catfish or alligator garths, things like that. Just like skipjack herring are a preferred bait for catfish. These are in the same family. So they probably died. We can't prove that, but we really like to do more work on this. We had 3 migrants move past Jonesville Dam, so only 10 to 16% of the fish actually survived to get through all the dam complex. Some kind of bottom, you know, big things. We really did it. We didn't think this was really very possible. If you would have asked me 2 years if we were going to go if we could do this, I would have said, yeah, probably not. But we just kept the nose to the grindstone, kept learning, kept working on it, and eventually we did it. We had the largest collection of juveniles made since 1999, and we implemented the first ever age 0 telemetry project. I will say that we wanted to repeat that this summer, but again, when we went seining, we've done 100 seine hauls this summer, and we caught 0 juveniles, so we think we're in another bust year. So we can't actually do the work right now this fall again. But that's all I got. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And it really is an interesting project. It's the first ever in the country project on H0 Alabama shad. And it should help us inform our species status assessment for the Fish and Wildlife Service to look at.
Jeff, great job. Thank you very much. So we're somewhat of a crossroads. We have two things essentially left, and then we have a director's report. Do we want to stop now? Where's Chris Tracy?
I think I would recommend that we pause if we're going to, and eat lunch, come back, and then restart.
Okay. Okay, so we'll pause now for lunch, take a break, come back at 1 o'clock. That work?
An hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we just have to drive somewhere to get there. So.
Meet at over at the Enforcement Training Center in their cafeteria.
Is that about a 15-minute drive over?
It is.
Okay, yeah, we could probably make 1 o'clock work. All right, we'll adjourn till 1.
Okay.